That is my teammate. That is my friend. That's my sister. That's somebody who saved my life.
Hi, dog lovers. Welcome back to Rescued by a Dog, the podcast about dogs who have actually saved their owners' lives. Today, we're going to hear from Army Ranger Trent, whose heroic working dog, Layka, saved his life in Afghanistan. And then he saved hers. Today's episode is sponsored by IzzyStays.com, my favorite hotel booking website for animal lovers like me. IzzyStays thinks every dog should be as spoiled as yours, so they set up a free and easy way to send the sales commission from your hotel booking to animal welfare charities. Before we get to the episode, a brief warning. This is a story of heroism and dedication, and it contains some difficult moments about amazing dogs who are wounded at war. But it's also a story about humans like Trent who will go to the ends of the earth to make sure that these dogs receive all the love they deserve when they retire. Hi.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. It's Trent, right?
Yeah, that's crazy. I was just randomly clicking stuff, and I don't know how I ended up here, but I ended up here.
Nice. We did it. I want to say thank you for your service, firstly. Why don't you go ahead and tell me your story?
Whenever I joined the K-9 section in the Special Operations, the 1st 75th Ranger Regiment, it was back in 2009. At that point in time, I was given a dog named MPC Benno. Layka and Benno were both Belgian Malinois. So MPC Benno was actually the first dog that I had, and I did all 4 of my combat deployments with him. I did 4 combat deployments. Had six ropes, helicopter ropes, onto hostile targets, which means I roped with Benno out of a helicopter, on a fast rope that was, no shorter than 35 feet. 10 IED finds, and IEDs are improvised explosive devices. And then we had 43 apprehensions. If Benno was a human, he would have been like a Spartan or something like that. You know what I mean? Holding back the line. And, when you have a dog like him and he's a part of your assault force and your task force, you can look at everybody and you can be like, because I'm not going to lie, you can look at a lot of people and you can be like we're all afraid. But then when you turned around and you looked at him, you quickly weren't afraid anymore because, that animal has my back. Therefore, all the butterflies in my stomach have gone away. And so that dog really was a source of a lot of my strength. With Benno, I had Benno for 4 deployments. So you fast forward to 2012, and Benno was shot in the head on my birthday.
Oh.
When Benno got shot and Benno was killed, a large piece of me died that day. Large piece of me died. I mean, to this day. I refuse to tell Layka's story without first telling Benno's story, right? Here you have a dog that did 8 combat deployments, night in, night out, year in, year out, saving lives every day. Everybody on that camp knew how close I was to Benno. And so anyway, yeah, when he passed, it was like Samson getting all his hair cut off. Everybody to this day, they'll tell you how they saw a massive shift and change in my attitude. Once he did die, I mean, I had 3 more months there that I had to continue to fight. You can't say time out and check out. You have to get a new dog. You have to get a new dog and you have to continue that fight. And, we got his remains back to, the Sharana Air Base, because we were in Sharana, Afghanistan. And, literally the next day I was bringing his remains on a C-130 and going back to Kandahar, so I could drop off his remains so he could get cremated. And I could pick out a new dog. There was 3 dogs for me to pick from at that point in time. There was 2 male dogs there, a dog named Lucky and a dog named Rico. Both dogs had multiple deployments, but they had never done anything spectacular on either of both deployments, right? They hadn't really proven themselves at all. And so I needed a dog that was either a blank slate or a dog that was salty, right? Because we were getting into contact every night. And so, so I saw Layka. Layka at the time had just turned 1. So she was very, very young. She had never been deployed before. This was her first deployment. And she just had this look about her, right? She had this look in her eyes about her that, that was kind of like, when you looked at her, you were like, yeah, and you saw her work, you were like, yeah, she can save lives. And so I grabbed her and picked her. So then we fly back to Sharana from Kandahar. And I am starting to prep this dog almost instantly for missions. Making sure the kit's on the dog, making sure the dog's properly fitted, kind of running through everything, right? Like when you have the luxury of having a dog that has 8 combat deployments, there's a certain feeling there's a certain feeling of security that you have, right? Because you already knew that a dog like Benno's going to perform and do his job. He's already done it for 8 deployments. So there's going to be no change to that. When you get a new dog, there's a lot of stressors there because you don't know what's going to, you don't know how this dog's going to perform. You don't know how she's going to act, there's a whole laundry list of things that could go wrong when you're talking about a brand new dog in this sort of environment. And so we go out and the first night I have her, we receive contact up from on a mountainside. There was like a little mud hut, probably no bigger than a king size bathroom, right? And so we sent her in this mud hut and she hit the brakes. So she hit the brakes, and so I had to pull out a tennis ball. Show it to her, and throw the tennis ball actually into the breach of this mud hut, so she would at least go in there and check it out. And you never really want to do that because, that's kind of training on the spot. And so we did it. There was nobody in the room, but right then and there, I was able to make like a note in my head. Like, got to work on entering rooms and entering and clearing rooms. We get back to that compound after running that mission, and we start, I let the assault force know, like, hey, look, here are our pros, here are our cons, and these are things that we need to start working on instantly. About that time, we had a lot of weather coming in. There was a lot of spring weather coming in, lots of rain, which means, our air assets are down. The drones aren't flying. The helicopters aren't flying, too much dust, not enough visibility. And so it really gave us and afforded us an opportunity to train Layka and get her up to speed. So for about 3 or 4 days, that's what we worked on with her. We worked on entering and clearing a room for a combatant. And so we did that for a bunch of nights, and we took her back out on a few more real targets once the weather cleared up. Nothing spectacular, nothing crazy happened. And then I would say on her 6th mission, it was May. So Benno got shot April 27th, and this would have been May 24th, would have been her 6th mission of 2012. We had landed outside the enemy compound. Upon landing outside of the enemy compound, we took indirect fire. Small arms fire from the targeted compound. At that point in time, we set up, we fired back, we suppressed fire, and then we pretty much did a call out. We said, "Hey, you, this is us. Come out with your hands up, or let the innocent people come out." And they let all the women and children out of the house. The woman in charge did a head count, and she confirmed that she had all women and all children, and they were all accounted for, and we had positive control over them. And so we gave the enemy one last opportunity to give up, and they responded with a flood of gunfire. So that instantly told us that they're not willing to give up. So we called in 2 Apache gunships, and they dropped 2 Hellfires onto that targeted compound. Upon upon completion of the 2 Hellfires going off, the command asked us to go ahead and do a BDA, which is a battle damage assessment. Upon completion of the battle damage assessment, it was assessed that, the compound was pretty much dilapidated from the 2 Hellfire missiles, and that they were going to go ahead and push Rangers, which is us, the assault force, in to clear the compound, right? So we could find weapons, sensitive site exploitation, cell phones, maps, anything that the enemy could be having on him that we could use for vital intel for future missions. And so we go in there and we clear it. And so we moved up to last cover and concealed position. My good buddy, he pulls out a thermal barrett grenade and he puts it in front of Layka's face and he throws it. He throws it into the breach. We all count back down from 8 seconds. Because that's the time fuse that grenade has on it. And so, we're 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 5 1,000, 6 1,000, 7 1,000, 8 1,000, boom. And right when this thing goes off, we're sending Layka, I'm sending Layka into that, dilapidated breach. Layka goes in there. She clears her first point of domination, which is the first corner of the house. And then she collapses down to the second point of domination. And at this point in time, you have 6 Rangers that are starting to flood inside of this dilapidated structure, and we're clearing room to room. I get up to where Layka's at, and as I get up to where Layka's at, I can see that she's engaging what appears to me to be a dead body. And so I went ahead and chose to take her off verbally. And as I was taking her off, the guy came back to life. And he began to shoot her, 4 times. Shot her 4 times, point blank range. That was the first time I'd ever been that close to gunfire before. So you have to think my hands are on her ears, you know what I mean? And I'm kind of working her on this bite. I think the guy's dead. My weapon is slung and my hands are not on my weapon whatsoever. Both of my hands are on my dog. So I am disarmed. And I'm running her out of this building and I'm running her to the predetermined fallback position. When I get there, we have the medic and we have a PA, which is a physician's assistant there. And they, it's my job to get control of Layka's head, and I put her muzzle on and then they start working the narcotic. And they start checking her wounds out. They start wrapping her up. And then once they got done, so you're looking at from flash to bang, from the time Layka got shot to the time we got home, it was probably 4 hours. They flew us back, the whole assault force back to the cache, which is the hospital. And we instantly started working on her. And when I said we, I mean there was a veterinarian and the veterinarian crew there, but ultimately who ended up working on her was actually real human surgeons. They amputated her leg, took 7 hours. So I sat in there the whole time, and then they had to fix that tricep on her right front leg, and they didn't have the equipment to do it in country. And so at that point in time, they had called in a airplane from Germany to come pick Layka up. So, within 8 hours from her getting shot, she now now her leg's amputated, and now they're calling on a massive cargo jet to come in and pick up the dog. So that was to me, that was kind of cool. And then they send her to Germany. At Germany, they do another 7-hour surgery, and then they put her in a 2-week medical induced coma. And during that, the reason why they put her in the medical induced coma was because they were afraid she was going to wake up and then literally damage the leg that they just repaired. And if she would have done that, she would have died. They would have had to put her down. Meanwhile, I'm not in Germany at all. I'm still in Afghanistan. And so all the updates I'm getting on this dog are all kind of second and third hand information, right? I'm calling up there. I'm just trying to figure out, hey, did she make it? Is she alive? Did she live through the surgery? Okay, now what? You know what I mean? And so they're like, hey, she lived through the surgery. we're putting her in a 2-week medical induced coma, and now we're sending her to San Antonio, Texas, and at Lackland Air Force Base. And Lackland Air Force Base is, if you know anything about the military, they have the largest military working dog facility in the United States. So Layka goes there, and she's there for like a month and a half, 2 months. And at that point in time, when she went there, I kind of lost contact with her just because I was fighting a war. You know what I mean? And when Layka got shot, the whole wind came, running out of my cells. There was no more wind. I had no more motivation for it. I was pretty angry and bitter. 2 dogs essentially in less than a month. And so, I had lost a lot. I lost a lot of confidence and a lot of, just a big piece of myself on that deployment. It took me a long time to figure out what that was, probably years. It took me a long time to find myself after that. And so I finally get home. I would say August, I get back, right? I get back in the United States. And, I see my family, I'm happy to be home, all that cool stuff. And then I call Lackland Air Force Base. And I'm like, hey, I'm just curious to know if you guys still have a dog named Layka. And they're like, oh, yeah, we have a dog named Layka. And I was like, great. I was like, well, I would like to adopt her. And they were like, oh, we already have somebody that sticks into adopt her. And they were like, who are you? And I was like, I'm her handler. And they were like, so they kind of hit the brakes on that. And they obviously gave me first come, first serve as far as adopting her. And then I went down to San Antonio, Texas, where I picked her up. Oh man, it was great. Like I could tell she had seen me, like she saw me, and you could tell there was like almost a sense of relief on her face. Right? Like she was like, oh yes, finally somebody who knows me. Because you got to think, a dog like her, she wakes up in a medical induced coma after 2 weeks, and she wakes up and now she's in the United States. Her last clear thought is getting shot. And so, all of a sudden she wakes up and now she's, in the United States surrounded by people she doesn't know, and she's missing a leg. And so when I saw her, she was just like super relieved, like, thank God you're here. Let's go. Upon picking her up, they actually had an award ceremony for her. And this is when she was awarded the Medal of Heroism, right, from the Air Force for her actions of saving about 6 special operation operators' lives that night. Because without her, there would have definitely been loss of life.
Yeah.
So she was awarded the Medal of Heroism, and I ended up adopting her. And then after I adopted her, I was just, that was my thing, is like, I was happy to have her. You know what I mean? And when people ask me, they're like, man, why'd you adopt her? And it's like, well, she didn't have a family to go home to. Like all these other soldiers, like they get wounded, they have family they get to go home to. They have the VA that goes and takes care of them. These dogs have nothing. And I couldn't allow that to happen to my teammate. I couldn't allow that burden of responsibility to be placed on anyone else, but me. That is my teammate. That is my friend. That's my sister. That's somebody who saved my life. And so I need to do everything that I possibly can do to bend over backwards and ensure that she has a good life moving forward.
What was it like getting her home and introducing her to your son? Like, how did all that go?
It went well. So, you got to think they had her on a lot of drugs whenever I got her. Xanax, Prozac, Valium, you name it. They had her on just like a laundry list of drugs. And so when I got her back home, and I was like, you don't need none of this. And then I started I weaned her off all the drugs because I needed her to have a clear head. I can't keep her doped up and then be able to trust her in the family environment. So I cleaned her systems out. And then after I felt like she was clean and done with all the drugs in her system, I put a muzzle on her and I let her walk around my house for a day. And then I kind of got a feeling that, hey, she's good. She seems like she's nice. She's not going to do anything stupid to my kid or my wife at the time. And so I took the muzzle off of her and just kind of let her roam around the house watching her. But she seemed very curious about a house. There was some deprogramming there to where, she would hear something loud and she would go like check it out really excitingly, like, oh, what was that? You know what I mean? Is that something I can bite? But after, I would say after about a year of her being in the house, she really calmed down. And so now she's just, she's a big old house dog now.
Is she a happy dog?
Yeah. Oh yeah. She's like, now at this point in time in her life, I think she knows what she is. And like all the recognition and stuff like that she's gotten, I think she knows what she is. So yeah, she's super happy. I call her Big Booty Judy because when she gets super excited, the way she wags her tail and her hips sway is pretty funny. It was like me and my son. Like I said, we were just kind of figuring things out with Layka, and my son was like, he was like 2 years old, but he's like laying on this thing on the floor, right? It's like in front of the TV. And, I go and I get something to drink. And then when I come back in to get something to drink, like Layka is rolled over on her back and my son is like crawling onto her stomach. And like, she's just blissful. You can see it in her face and in her eyes. She's just super happy. And it was kind of like right then and there, I knew that it was going to be all right. And then, probably about after a year or two after adopting her, that's when she started getting a lot of recognition, and she got it through the National Geographic when she made the cover of the National Geographic. I want to say June 2014. So she graced the cover, and then, I jumped out of a plane with her, and that's kind of like when all the History Channel documentary and the HBO documentary came out. And then, this time, I'd say this time last year, February of last year, Dog the movie came out with Channing Tatum. And if you look at the credits through that, Layka and Benno's story played a huge inspiration in the making of that movie.
What does she mean to you now?
Oh man, she's equivalent to my children. She's definitely somebody who, she's 11 now. And so right now what she means to me is she's one of my children, and every moment that I have with her in this life, I just try to embrace it and soak it up. She's helped me transition from the military to the civilian life. People have their PTSD therapy dogs. Well, I have my Layka. And so she has really helped me. She's really helped kind of, help guide me through the civilian life, if that makes sense, political wise with Congress and pushing that agenda of getting these dogs health care. And that's something that I'm doing with her actively, working with foundations and groups that take care of special operation retired canines. She's walking proof, visual proof of the sacrifice that all these dogs give night in and night out. I have a problem with the aftercare of these animals, once they're done, because while they're in the military and they're serving their purpose, they are given some of the best medical care that money can provide. But the instant that they're done, right, they're called access equipment, and they are no longer cared for. The government does nothing for these dogs once they retire, right? There is no VA, there is no medical plan, there is nothing. I mean, we can cut checks and cash checks for trillions of dollars for wars that we don't even go and fight. And you mean to tell me that you can't allot, $5 million to retired military dogs? Because you got to think, by the time these dogs retire, they're 8 years old? You know, if they have ran their course, they're 8 years old when they retire. And so we talk about it, right? Like this is something that people on every political side can agree with, right? Your left and your right, right? They should all be able to look at each other, and we should be able to go to Congress, and they should be able to agree that, hey, these dogs are worth it. We need to go ahead and provide them with free medical care. And I'll tell you this, right? And this is what grinds my gears about it, right? Like you can put her on the front of magazines, right? For your PR and your HR campaigns, right? For your re-enlistments and for your initial enlistments. You know, people look at that, not soldiers, but like kids, young kids, and people thinking about going to the military. Like they see that dog and they see her on the cover of National Geographic and they're like, oh man, that's something I want to go do. Right. So you can put her on the front of magazine covers for your PR campaigns. You can erect statues of her. You can put her in documentaries and everything else, but you mean to tell me you can't give her medical care?
Yeah.
And so all the medical care, even now from Layka, is done from a foundation.
Wow.
It really wasn't up until this time last year that I had been paying everything medical out of my own pocket. And so I do have a mission with her, and that is the mission. Her mission is to bring awareness.
Did she like her job?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. She enjoyed it. She enjoyed it a lot. You know what I mean? But when you have a dog that's willing to walk onto a helicopter with you night in and night out, you know what I mean? And walk around dark nighttime targets with you and essentially engage enemy combatants. I mean, that dog's got to really like what he's doing.
Yeah.
They don't do it because they don't like it. They do it because they love it.
If she could understand human English, what would you say to her?
Oh, that I love you. That I love you. I love you with all my heart.
To learn more about one of the foundations that raise money for medical care for retired military dogs like Layka, go to scottswish.org and click on the page In Honor of Duco, D-U-C-O.